Hello, welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for following my journey. And here we have another 2019 compilation, and yes, it's January 2020, but I do the best I can. And I had a fair number of new pens in December, which pretty much occupied my spare time and didn't leave any to really do any compilations, but it's hard for me to put together a set of pens. Like the first set of pens I did for 2019 were kind of like my highlights. These are pens that probably could have been in the highlights, but they didn't make it because I didn't write with them enough to make that original group. And we do have 15 pens here. You may recognize a bunch of them. We're going to do the right to left, got it right this time, review of these. So the first pen up in this list is probably could have made the best pen of 2019, the TWSBI Aurora. So why didn't this make the other list? Well, number one, this is not a pen that's going to leave my pen room, so it didn't travel with me, and the majority of my writing is done outside of the pen room, so therefore it missed out on those opportunities. 1 1/4 turns to uncap. It has a nice black nib in it, which is a number 5 nib, and TWSBI is known for their nibs, and I wouldn't put this one up as their best nib. It's okay. It has a different style of feedback, which could be due to that coating. It's a medium. That's the only nib they offered in this pen. But the feel, the weight, the balance is excellent. It's a shame they haven't brought this pen into production, because I think it would be a winner. I think they could charge more than they did originally, but that's just my opinions. Batting second in the list are 2 Vertexes. This is actually 2019 and this is 2018, but I put them here together because these are pens that I did travel with a little bit, especially this original one with the titanium nib. The gray one I got a 1.5 stub, so I wanted to really have a very expansive difference between these two. But these, again, like the Aurora, are extremely ergonomic, very quick pop-off cap, post great, feel excellent in the hand. They're much lighter than the Aurora pen, but that's fine. They're not designed for that weight feeling. I love the way that the section is clear on these pens. This was an excellent design. They hit it out of the ballpark, in my mind, on this design. They just don't make as many of them as I think they could. I think the price is about as high as the market will bear for these two pens. But if interesting design attracts you, the newer model, the original model didn't take a converter or cartridge. The newer one does. So they did do some minor changes to improve the utilization of the pen, but still it's a great pen, but it doesn't find itself into my hand as much as I think it should or could. Here we have a Jinhao 51A with a bobby nib. Classic design. Pull-off cap, and that nib just is phenomenal to write with. This pen has been inked up for over a year. It writes first time every time, as most of my other 51As did. Very well made. That acrylic is great. Kind of looks like they're sourcing them from the same place as Pen BBS. So 5th on the list, and 5th and 6th are 2 more Keras custom pens. This is the Starliner. Pull-off cap again. This was the first metal pull-off cap one they made, or maybe the only one they made. There's a nice steel nib in it. I love the feel of this brushed aluminum. It posts well. It has some decent weight to it, but not excessive. It's a little bit on the small side for the pen, but that's part of the design. Something you could throw in your pocket, feel comfortable with it there. And then is this next pen is the ink in orange. I love that finish. I love the industrial look. This is a screw-off cap. A little bit more than 1 1/4. I got it with a black broad nib, and this is just a very great writer. It's even lighter than the Starliner. It posts a little bit higher, but you can use it posted or unposted. It works equally well. It might be a little short for some people unposted. It has a brushed aluminum section here, which is nice. A little bit on the small side, which is one of the reasons it may not have made my everyday writing, but I love to use it in letters. I got a nice orange ink in it, which that broad nib really shows off. So here's a look high, kind of like a pen that came and went, and a lot of people may have missed it. And this one, unfortunately, has the cap that takes 7 turns to get off. It's a lot. The original ones only took less than 2. This posts very nicely. And what I put in here was just a generic 1.1 Chinese stub. It has a glittery purple ink, and that ink has been in there for well over a year. And it writes first time every time, no ink in the cap. Just dependable writer. Too bad they had that multiple threads, no reason for them in the cap. Here's a Senator. There are 2 Senators right back to back. This is the first one I got. It has those initials on it, which is, I think, some type of media company in Europe. You know, and uncaps in about 2 turns. It has a steel nib, but it writes extremely well, which I think is a Senator trademark. It has that nice ebonite feed in it. It has a nice vintage look to it. And again, it's not a pen that I wrote with as much as I thought I should. And here's the Senator, probably a little bit earlier in time than the all black one. And this has that beautiful Bach 14 karat gold nib, which just is nice and soft and super smooth, that same type of feed. This one is a little bit wear, but that never bothers me. It's how the pen writes and feels in my hand. And both of those, to me, are a little bit on the small side as far as the feel of the writing. So here's the newest pen in this group. This is a 601. It's the pump filler pop-off cap, and I put a bobby nib in it. So I had a bobby nib here earlier, and here's the second iteration of it. It writes a little bit differently. It's a little bit drier in this pen, but this may become a more everyday writer for me. But as of now, it didn't get as much use in 2019 as I think it should have. So here's another interesting pen. It's a Knox pen. They're no longer available, or if they are, they're hard to find. Birmingham Ink had a lot of them. Put them at a great price. Again, a pop-off cap. And it has a very nice number 5 oblique double broad nib. Beautiful writer, smooth, puts down a lot of ink, and that kind of hits a sweet spot for me. It posts fine. I mean, this is for a $10 pen, this is a phenomenal buy. I mean, the nib is worth $10. So you're kind of getting the pen for free. But didn't get written with as much as I thought it should. Here's another pen that could have easily made the top writers of 2019. But again, it's not a pen that I used as much. I have a jar that I keep my pocket pens in, and this was in it along with the next pen in this group. There's a really nice weight to it. The way that they knurled that brass, it just feels really nice in the hand. It's an unscrew cap. It's probably close to 3 turns to get it off. It screws to posts, which is a very common design of a lot of pens like this, which I think is good. You can use it unposted because it is a fairly long pen. It has a small section, but it has a beautiful upturned nib. Very smooth, very nice writer. This is kind of towards the tail end of 2019. I rediscovered this pen, and it became a daily use pen for a while, but I have so many pens I put into daily use, it didn't quite stay there like it could have. And I have to at least have one of these form factors. The Wonkai Mini was the first one to do it. This is a Meru pen. It just feels nice in the hand, a beautiful acrylic, similar to the ones that Pen BBS uses, unscrew cap, and this is something that you do post, but it's a screw to post. Again, this is a common design of these types of pens. Once you post it, it makes a very nice pen, and this has that Delight bent nib in it, which I've enjoyed in all the pens it's been in. It's a little bit more bent than the one that Pen BBS uses, but it's similar in the fact that it's a very smooth writer, consistent writer. And this pen, like the brass pen, you can leave it set for a couple months and take off the cap and it writes immediately like you've been writing with it every day. Here's a pen again that just missed the list. This is the Fine Writing International Jupiter pen. I love the design. I could have eyedroppered it, but I didn't feel like putting a lot of ink into it. Again, they did a very, very nice job. And it's priced, I think, appropriately. It's in the $50 range. Yeah, a little bit over 2 turns for the cap. You got a section, the same material as the end cap and cap, the barrel cap. Has a really nice customized black nib in it. This has been a decent writer. It's and I think it's an extra fine. Yeah. So I got it to just kind of try it out. It does post okay if I put it on right, but it posts very high and makes for a very long pen. But the cap is light, so if you need to post, you can post it. But it's a pen that I would normally write with unposted. So last but not least on this list, you know, the thing about the Saturn, or the Jupiter, or the whole Planet series, is there's a spring-loaded cap liner in here, like Fine Writing uses in a lot of their pens. So if you just put the cap on and turn without putting pressure on it to engage the threads, it just sits there and spins. It always, because I don't use it as much as I should, I always forget it, and I figure, why isn't the cap going on? So this is the Natami pen I did towards the latter part of 2019. And then after the review, it kind of sat. And then I grabbed it one day and wrote with it, and I go, wow, that nib is excellent. So unlike other hooded nibs, this one's a little bit more exposed, and it has a little bounce to it. But this, towards the latter part of 2019, became a daily writer. So we're going to do a quick writing sample of these 15 pens, and this will be a long video, but hang in there. Hopefully you'll find it interesting, enjoyable, and educational. So we're going to do some writing, and I titled this Pens I Should Have Written More With. Not very creative, but appropriate. This pen feels good in the hand. I mean, I would put the quality of this pen up against any other turned acrylic pen, wherever it's made in USA, Italy, Japan, China. And the acrylic is just phenomenal, and the ink is just a perfect combination. Because I'm over the tripod, we don't want the cap hitting the tripod. I mean, this nib is smooth. It lays down a decent amount of ink. It just doesn't provide me with a thrilling writing experience. It does have a little bit of line variation between horizontal and vertical. I mean, I love the pen. I'm not in love with the nib. So maybe I could play around with it, but I doubt if I'd find a black number 5 nib that's going to work with this pen. So it'll stay as a desk pen with occasional use. So the Vertex is another pen that just fits extremely well in the hand, feels very good. It's much lighter than the Aurora, and that's noticeable right away, but the section's a little bit bigger, and that's nice. And I have that nice stub nib that has the custom laser engraving that Karis put on them. A little bit off center, but hey, it gives it that interesting look. I mean, this nib took me a while to get it to work the way I like it. Now it's nice and wet. Feels good on the paper, but like I said, it's not a pen that I took out of the room or used on the road. So here's my first Vertex, which I bought at DC Pen Show almost 2 years ago. And I got it with green with a nice yellow clear section, nice ink window, which is a trademark of this design. And this has that great titanium nib in it from Bock. And I think it's an extra fine. It's either an extra fine or a fine. I did a comparison of those a while ago. I have both. But this just feels good on the paper. You get a decent amount of feedback, which is known for titanium nibs and especially these Bock titanium nibs. But it's a little bit soft. As you can see, you can squeeze out a little bit of line variation. And you know, this difference between a 1.5 and I can love both of these nibs. If I was going to write with only one of them, I would choose this titanium nib because it lets you really control the line variation, whereas here you're going to get a nice wide line on some strokes, which is the nature of the stub. So the 51A, I think, is, to me, a classic. Very, very smooth nib, very pleasant to write with. I mean, every time I pick up this pen, which is what all these pens have in common, I go, wow, that's a nice thing to write with. The fact that I don't use it more often is kind of my fault, but this is a pen that I would recommend for anybody who enjoys writing. That classic section is very, very comfortable. The pen is comfortable both posted and unposted. Fits well in the hand. So the Keras Starliner is a pen I would definitely use posted. It's interesting comparing the weight because this is kind of like more of a dense feel to it because of the metal. You know, probably the pen weight is similar to the Aurora, but the Aurora is spread out on a much larger area, so it doesn't feel as heavy. And this is a super smooth nib. This will dry out if you leave it go for many, many weeks or a month, but it's easy to restart, so that makes it nice. And Bock doesn't really label their nibs, but this is a broad nib. That's what I usually get. And it's a pleasure to write with. Now I have a few pens inked up with olivine, and you can see how dark it came out here because this ink has been in here for a while, so there's been a little bit of evaporation, so the ink has kind of concentrated itself like evaporated milk. So the Keras Fountain K, I kind of bought on a whim. You know, I get these emails and it says, wow, we have a special sale on them, and I go, wow, I think that's nice. So this is another broad nib. It's black. It's a number 5 like the Starliner, and it's just super, super smooth. It's a pleasure to write with, and this Kaweco Sunrise Orange works very well in this pen, but for some reason it never made it into my EDC. So the Lakai is another pen that feels very, very good in the hand. Yeah, there's threads there, but you don't really feel them. There's a little step up, but you don't really feel it. And this is like a $1 nib. And it is smooth as any stub I've ever used. And even though this is ink with a little bit of glitter in it, it always writes first time, every time. I had one of these inked up with Pen BBS green glitter ink 277, and that didn't hold up as well as this purple glitter does. And again, this is a pen I haven't reached with quite a bit. I need to put it in a place where it's more visible to me, so I pick it up and write with it more often because it is a pleasure to write with. So this Senator fits well in the hand again. Section is about as small as I'm comfortable with using. And this is a steel nib that is one of those nibs that I would tell anybody it's as good as a gold nib. I would call it a fine. It has a little bit of bounce to it. It's soft. It's just a pleasure to use, but for some reason it never made it into my everyday carry, and I don't know why. It's a piston fill. It doesn't dry. I mean, it's not as like the 51A or some of the other pens that are, you can leave them for a couple months. This one will need a little bit of coaxing, but it's easy to get it back into writing. But this nib just glides across the paper. It's a joy to use. So this is my other Senator with a 14K nib. I would also call it a fine. And this is also soft, slightly softer than the steel nib, but not something that is a significant feel when you're writing. You know, it obviously opens up a little bit more than the steel nib does, but you know, it is super smooth, slightly smoother than the steel nib, which I thought was smooth. This pen is just a little bit small for me for long-term writing or writing notes with and things like that. Wasky Squirrel loves his Senators. He's now on to Geka Boy, another German pen maker that doesn't excite me, but I'm glad that he found something that he likes. And he turned me on to the Senators with these great 14-karat Bach nibs. So here's that great Wing Sung 601 with that nice pump filler that puts a couple milliliters of ink in here, and it's the one I did a video on. I replaced it and put a bobby nib in here. And this is as good as the bobby nib and the bobby pen. And it works really well with this Birmingham ink. It just glides across the paper. You get a little bit more feedback than you get with the Senator nibs, but certainly something that I kind of enjoy most of the time when I write. This is also something that's very reliable writer, and this could easily be an everyday carry. But the challenge is I carry maybe 3 pens with me, and I got 40 inked up, so some of them just don't make the cut when I put them in my pen case. So this is another pen I bought because of the nib. I mean, this is a great writer. It is as smooth as any nib I've ever written with. It's a nice broad nib. It has a little bit of a oblique character, but Knox didn't really cut their nibs with much of an angle and also much of a sharpness. And it works great with this Honeyburst ink. It's an excellent combination. This is another pen that I probably should use more often, but it's a little wet, I think, as an everyday note taker, so it pretty much stays at home. So this is that Moonman brass pen, and I'm not going to post it because it'll work unposted, unlike the next pen. But this nib is that Moonman bent nib. It has Delight on it. And it's, again, a joy to use. And this pen has made my everyday carry on occasion. But it sat for a few months, and when I uncapped it, it wrote first time, which is really nice. I really appreciate that in a pen. This section is just a little small for me. But as a note-taking pen, it works fairly well. But you got to be prepared, you know, to uncap and cap, and you can, you know, screw to post. But the pen just feels good in the hand, and I think that's the main benefit of this pen. But because of the size and everything, it doesn't get as much use as it probably should. So this is the Meru pen. It may be made by Delight or Moonman or something like that, and Meru pen is a stationery store. And this has that bent nib. It's actually even smoother than the one in the brass pen. And this, again, is a pen that you can leave set for a few months, uncap it, and it writes first time every time. It's a beautiful pen to throw in your pocket. It's a nice size Post-it, and this is one that probably wouldn't work well if you didn't post it unless you're just taking a very quick note. But it just somehow never got used as much as I think it should. You know, the pen BBS 471 really became my focus right after I got this pen, and this pen kind of languished and went more towards the back of the desk. So this Fine Writing International, just, it's a good size. It's not heavy at all. Nice section, nice number 6 size nib on it. Works well as an eyedropper. This converter is a little bit wonky, so I would probably replace it if I continue to use a converter. Sadly, I might, when this converter empties out, I may just put this pen in the uninked category. So this is Fine Writing International Jupiter. They made a whole planet series. Saturn was the yellow one that got a lot of attention. But this is just as good. It's an extra fine nib, which is a little bit finer than I like. I like to experiment occasionally. Some extra fines, as I showed with the first group of 2019 pens, the Moonman N3, that one was nice. I mean, with no pressure, it really glides. But we know I have a heavy hand, so I use a heavy hand. But just, I think they did an excellent job with this design and everything else. For some reason, it didn't find a place in my heart. So last but not least is the Natami. And this nib is excellent. It feels as good as any nib I've written with in this group. It lays down, as you can see, a nice wet line. It works great with this sapphire blue ink. It really, you know, with that amount of ink it lays down, that color just really pops. And this has also, like the Brass Moonman, found its way into my daily carry late in 2019, but it languished for many, many months on my desk, and I never really reached for it. And one time I reached for it, threw in my daily carry, and when I took it out to take some notes in a bar, I go, oh, I should use this pen more often. And henceforth, it's ended up in this list of pens that I should have written with more often, but didn't. We've reached the end of this video. This is really an eclectic group of pens. And I did 15 before, here's another 15. I could do 3 more trays of these and still not run out of my inked up pens, which is probably not a good thing. But, it's me. I do try to clean out now as many pens. So if I ink up a pen to do a review and I don't clean it out after the review, I have to clean out other pens. And I just keep pens in so many different places that I lose track of them, and that's unfortunate, but that's how me and my pens get along. So one of the things that I want to note is there's a pen that's been missing from both this video and the previous video. Can you guess what it is? It's a Moonman M600. So I have one more video that I've toyed with putting together, and hopefully I'll get to it in the next couple days, but it's pens with flat tops. Pens that kind of emulate, mimic the Parker dual fold from the late 20s. That was an iconic pen, like the Schaefer Balance, like the Parker 51, that really established a look, a feel, an image that has survived the test of time and has been incorporated into many pens. And I'm going to try to put together as many pens as I think should fit into that category, and hopefully you'll find that video interesting too. So thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking with me through this video. Hopefully you watched the end of it. I tried to add as much variety as I could in regards to looking at these pens and discussing why they're here in this group. So may you have a wonderful writing experience with whatever writing instrument you like. And whether it cost $1 or $1,000 or whether someone gave it to you, the real joy to me is in how it makes me feel when I write with it. And these pens here bring a little bit of a smile to my face when I write with them, and that's why I decided to share them with you. So have a great day, have a great life. Don't be afraid to explore and experiment. You'll never know what you might find. So we're going to say bye until the next video.